Agenda for today. It's opening and welcome. Apologies. And then the briefing by Armscor on its plan and budget for 23-24. And briefing by DMV on its plan and budget for 23-24. And then we do our minutes at the end and then close the meeting. So this then is the agenda is approved. I now welcome all of you colleagues, and thank you for taking your time to attend the meeting. May I then start with the apologies? Are there any apologies, Brian?
Yes, Chair. Chair, we have two apologies. I also have an apology for the minister who is attending the youth in the ordinary meeting of the Special Technical Committee on Defense in Ethiopia. Thank you, Chair. Those are all the apologies.
So you're saying the minister is abroad?
She's in Ethiopia, Chair.
The minister is in Ethiopia?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, and all right, let's you said on the side of the committee, I did not get the apologies.
It's General Olumisa, Chair.
General Olumisa, okay. Do we have the quorum?
Indeed, we do, Chair. We
do have the quorum. All right.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. So let's then start. Let me check from if we do have we do have Armscor in the meeting. Armscor, are you in the meeting? Armscor, a delegation. I think there's a problem. Do you have the delegation from Armscor in the meeting? Ryan?
Chair, I had admitted someone from Armscor, but I no longer see them on the meeting. Could I just check on them, Chair?
Yeah, I suspect they got let shed at 10. Please do check. Colleagues, just a minute or two whilst waiting for Armscor to rejoin the meeting. Thanks.
Chair, I have just admitted them back into the meeting.
Security is an apology. It's really
Chairperson? Chair, you are muted.
I only hear Brian now, Chairperson. I don't know whether Chairperson is also gone.
I see Chairperson is in the meeting, but is muted. Chair, you are muted.
Colleagues, I'm muted.
You are now,
unmuted now.
you are now audible, Chairperson.
I'm now audible. Okay, no, thanks.
Yes.
Is Armscor back, Brian?
Yes, they are, Chair.
Oh, yes. No, thank you very much. Let me once again welcome the group CEO and the team. I'm not too sure if there are any members of the board present in the meeting, but the group CEO will indicate if there is. So I will then hand over to him to take us through their corporate plan and the budget for 2023 and 2024. Over to you, sir. I can't hear Armscor. I think the system has kicked them out again. Not so.
Yeah, I can also not hear anything from them, Chair.
Is it you? And can you see them on the screen? They're not on the platform, Mr. Murray. Doesn't look like.
No, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, they're really struggling.
I don't see them.
Brian was telling me that the decision is that you must start meeting physically. So it means that for the meetings that are coming, we should now start to make that our habit, that we meet in Cape Town. But as to whether there are enough rooms to accommodate all the committee meetings,
that's the challenge. That is a challenge. That is a challenge.
Brian, tell me any information in that regard?
Chairperson, can I just make an inquiry or a suggestion in that regard? I think we have discussed it in the past in terms of meetings for us. We have got the benefit that we can talk to Castle and see whether we can have meetings there if Parliament cannot accommodate us, or we can even meet at Eysterplaat or Youngsfield or any of those military facilities. If we have got a problem in have a committee meeting room on the precinct of Parliament. I mean, that's the benefit that we've got, and we must make use of that. That's my suggestion.
Yes, maybe we should consider that. It's just that maybe those rooms that you are suggesting may not have the way of connecting the TV channel, documentary channels, and other things that yes.
Correct, but I
have those
think
facilities, yeah.
Yes, I think
but I think you are right. Let's come again.
I think if Brian can find out, remember, Chair, that the Defence Force, when they have got sometimes their meeting, they also have kind of a meeting where people sit in different areas. And maybe they've got the facilities, for instance, at Simonstown or Wynberg or Youngsfield or Oysterplaat. I'm sure that they've got some technologies that maybe we can utilize that, and it can be of assistance to us. So then we have got at least, we can stay away from the other committees and they can have the precincts committee rooms, and we can go unhindered and no problems in the future.
Okay. No, Brian.
I'm sorry, Chairperson.
That. Yes, Brian.
We do have Armscor back on the platform.
Oh, Armscor is back on the platform. Okay. Just to conclude on the point that we've just been discussing, Brian, please just inquire into the possibility of holding meetings in the castle or elsewhere if we cannot find a venue within the precinct of Parliament.
Will do, Chair.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, let's then welcome Armscor back into the meeting. Armscor, I was just, I don't know what time when you got cut out, but I was simply saying that I don't know who else is in the meeting representing the board, but you would know, and I will then ask you to do the introduction. If there is any member of the board in the meeting, please do indicate. Over to you, sir. DM, are you in the meeting? DM is in the meeting, eh? I think I remember.
I've seen his name on the list.
I think I did see his name. Yes, yes, his name is there. Welcome to you, DM, and the team from the DMV. Thank you very much for your attendance. Over to you, Group CEO, Advocate Mbada.
It's Ms. Mashinini. Apology, our chairperson is not able to join us. With me, I've got Ambassador Ndlovu and the executives. Let me also extend our greetings to the Deputy Minister, honorable members, and all our distinguished guests. The CEO, Advocate Mbada, is going to take us through to the presentation. I think we apologize, it's the load shedding that I think took us out. I trust that you did realize that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mashinini, for your introductory remarks and the introductions. Over to you, Group CEO.
Good morning, Chair, members of the Portfolio Committee, Deputy Minister, colleagues from DMV and the DOD. Chair, our approach will be as follows, Chair. The first part of our presentation will be handled by Ms. Kathy Neonakis, who's our Head of Strategy and Planning, and the financial overview and the records review will be dealt with by the CFO. I will, without any further ado, Chair, hand over to Ms. Neonakis. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, honourable members. I'll be presenting the Corporate Plan 2023 to the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans. Just to confirm, Chair, if the presentation is viewed from your side too, before I proceed.
Yes, I can see it clearly, Madam.
Thank you for the confirmation, sir. All right, in terms of the scope of the presentation, I'll just give you a brief summary on the aim, and then it contains 4 parts. Firstly, the mandate, the strategic focus, measurement of Armscor's performance, and the records management. So as introduction, and the aim for this presentation is firstly to present to the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans, but also to obtain approval for the adoption of the corporate plan and the promulgation in the corporation within Armscor to implement it further within our structures. The plan has also been aligned with the revised medium-term strategic framework and all the government initiatives and requirements, which is required that we align this plan to those initiatives and guidelines. In terms of our mandate is very clear. It's the Armscor Act number 51 of 2003, and we a statutory corporation, is Schedule 2. So nothing has changed in that environment, and it's very clear in terms of what we have to fulfill in our mandate. So I won't go through all the detail. I'll just confirm that it's still the same. When we look at our strategic hierarchy, you will notice that you take your guidance from the Armscor mandate. From there, we adopt a vision together with EXCO and the board. We then compile our mission, our values, our strategic outputs, our goals, and then actions flow in our plans from corporate level through to divisional level. In terms of our structure, our shareholder is the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans. Our board reports to her. Within our board, we've got 5 committees. It's the Audit and Risk Committee, the Human Resources and Social Ethics Committee, Technology, Industry Support and Sustainability Committee, Acquisition Committee, and the Military Veterans Committee. Our executing functions consist of the Acquisition and SEM function, Research and Development, Armscor Dockyard. In support of that, we've got the Corporate Support Business Unit, Business Assurance, and Business Enablement. Now, when we look at our Research and Development, which will give us our cutting edge as a acquisition, procurement, and R&D organization, firstly, we've got ProTechnique. They specialize in defense, chemical, and biological research. Ergotech specializes in economic solutions to optimize human performance, and Hazmat manufactures and supplies respiratory filtering masks. Some of the honorable members have visited these facilities. Further, in relation to the research and development facilities, in our Pretoria West environment, we've got Geratech test facility, and they test the military vehicles as well as commercial vehicles. Alkanpan in the Northern Cape does artillery testing range. And then in Cape Town in the Western Cape, we have our IMT facility that specializes mainly in maritime research. Back at home here in the Armscor building, we've got other research and development facilities. Firstly, when you look at our intellectual property exploitation, we've got IPMAD. We've got also Kamani that looks at technology acquisition and technology commercialization. We've also got DDSI, known as Defence Decision Support Institute, that also provides strategic decisions for the Department of Defence. Flamengo provides computer-based simulation and failure analysis support. And then we've got armor development that looks at the development of passive and reactive armor systems for the SANDF. Going back to the Western Cape in Simonstown, we've got the dockyard, and the mandate is very clear. They're there to fulfill the SA Navy's third and fourth line maintenance and refitting for the department. Part B, relating to the strategic focus, when we conduct the analysis for the corporate plan, we always conduct it in the way of first viewing it from the external environment, and we align it with the Department of Defence. So the PEST limb focuses on political, economic, social, technological, environmental, legal, and military. So we ensure that we're in alignment with our client, and issues that can be affecting them will simultaneously affect us. So I won't go through everything in terms of time constraints. I'll just highlight one per perspective. In your political environment, you'll have political factions and fragmentation, your economic environment, your energy security, your social environment, the violence and the crime, technology, cybersecurity, environmental, climate changes, legal policy uncertainty, and then your military environment, the reduced funding. Also encompassed in the plan is the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans priorities. She's got 3 main priorities, and we support all these priorities. Added to that, the Minister took a decision to place certain focus areas for the Secretary for Defence, the Chief of the SANDF, as well as Armscor. So these are the focus areas which our Minister has requested Armscor to place a focus on, and to, within this financial year, ensure that we can provide her with comfort that these areas are being attended to, and that we can at least provide her with a solution going forward. And also in terms of Armscor and the defence and the industry, there is comfort in terms of who can, let's say, in terms of the spares, or should a supplier not be in a position to deliver on a certain order, who else can take upon that order? So these are being attended to in this financial year. Looking at our performance measurement, it concentrates on 2 different components. The first one is the service level agreement between the Department of Defence and Armscor. The first 4 goals are relating to our acquisition environment. So it's the contracts that are being placed by Armscor, also the contractual payments made, the schedule order placement, and the management of defence industrial participation. The next category looks at your management of defence technology, research, test and evaluation. And your last category looks at the dockyard, the SLA between the dockyard and the Navy. Just would like to highlight, recently the EXCO went on a strategic session where in one of the main areas, besides looking at the minister's focus areas, was also to address the point on expediting spares. So the procurement of spares will be expedited in the sense that the 90 days that we're supposed to be achieving for COTS, we would like to reduce those days. If there is an urgent requirement, we would try and see if we can't fulfill it within 45 days. Now, when we look at the strategic outputs, there's 4. Firstly, we have our revenue generation. That focuses on trying to generate additional revenue. As you know, the defence is really hit quite hard with our financial decline, and we have to be creative to try and introduce other ways how we can generate additional revenue to alleviate the budget constraints. When we look at the second output, this is your cost management environment. That looks at trying to improve on the net financial position. As you're well aware, National Treasury issued instructions in terms of cost containment. So this is an ongoing exercise for our organization. In terms of efficient and effective delivery, this is key for our organization because we try to expedite services and try to move rather quickly in terms of the procurement of certain spares, and the services that we render for the Department of Defence and other clients. So we look at effective technology and IP management as well as infrastructure renewal. The last output is looking at stakeholder management, and there we look at the stakeholder engagement because we have to maintain and also build on our stakeholder relationships. It's key in the entire exercise. And then also to transform the corporation, which is a critical role. When we look at our human resources, Armscor invests quite a lot in our human capital. It is very important that we ensure that the people that we are working with, that we really see them as this precious asset. And our focus is not only to provide them with the skills to do their job, but also, if you look at the National Development Plan, it's the creation of jobs, it's education, etc. So we try to ensure that we also meet those targets. From the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, within the President's Office, they're looking at 3 key areas, being the appointment of females, also the appointment of people with disabilities and youth. So if you look at in terms of our employment equity plan, we're doing quite well over there. In terms of Black representation, we're standing at 88.06%. Appointment of female representation, we're standing at 40.76%. And then if we look at the youth, the bursaries against a target of 23, we've issued 38. And then your talent development program against a target of 30, we've issued 32. Coupled to that, in terms of the development of the employees, you can see employees that have attended the learning and development program is more than 53%. People living with disabilities also attending these programs is more than 37%. And then women, we've really placed a lot of emphasis on them, is more than 63%. A new initiative also in our learning and development environment is the appointment of the Youth Workforce Development Program in partnership with the Gauteng City Region Academy. 11 of these learners were appointed at Armscor since December 2022 for a duration of 12 months. 5 of these learners have been placed in supporting roles within different divisions within Armscor. Now, when we look at our statistics in terms of Armscor, because as you know, it's a very technical environment. So if we look at the areas of engineering and science, you can see how many of our employees are qualified in the different areas. In terms of the staff composition, I'm just going to highlight that if we look at the Black group versus the white group, the Black group is the blue line and your white group is the red line. So you can see the gap, how it's growing apart, and you can see the decline of the white group. When we look at the staff composition between male and females, female representing your blue line and your males representing your red line, you can see that the appointment of women is on the increase. This is a picture of the Youth Workforce Development Program of these students that have been appointed from different colleges and also universities in collaboration with the Gauteng Education Department. Another area which is key to Armscor as an organization is the corporate social investment. We like to maintain our national footprint within the RSA. So in the past financial year, 23 projects were funded. These projects are divided into 3 categories, namely your social relief, your human capital development, and your socio-economic upliftment. Lastly, for any strategy to be successful, the success lies in the implementation. Coupled to that is critical success factors. So for Armscor, in order for our strategy to be successful, firstly, sustainability, cost management, revenue and performance is key. Effective information and physical security is important. Also our systems, IT systems must be effective. And obviously your stakeholder engagement must be not only maintained, but built on to ensure that you've got buy-in from your clients. Revenue generation, and then timelines to achieve our contractual obligations. Because working with the industry, we must ensure that those contractual obligations, those timelines are achieved. I will now hand over to our CFO, who will take us through the financial overview.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, Deputy Minister, and other esteemed colleagues. Just to look at the financial overview of Armscor for the year, next year. In terms of our revenue, I think our revenue, our funding of Armscor is basically still the same consistent as the previous year. The main contributing factor is the allocation from the Parliament to the Department of Defence, which is actually 69%. I can just indicate that that amount only increased by 0.6% for the current year's funding. As that is not sufficient to sustain the capability, we also supplement that with other work for commercial customers, as well as for the DoD investment income and other income, which include rental income and recovery of some services that we render for the DoD, like the security costs and cleaning costs. In terms of the main expenditure, the service organization, that remains personnel cost. It's high cost, 69% as expected for service organization. The other expenditure is mainly external services, which include all the contractor costs for maintaining the building, mechanical, aircon, lifts, all of those. Then also including security costs, audit services. So all of those are grouped into external services. Water and electricity, 4.1%. It's quite a big, large facility to run. It's quite an expensive facility. Then subsistence to travel is a small portion, 1.7%. Training and business commitments is 2.1%. The net result of the budget is a surplus of 24.3 million for the group. And as we stated there, we also continue to operate within strict cost containment measures. The revenue generated by the group was positively influenced by the technology funds that we did receive from the department, which is now coupled to specific projects. In the year before last year, we didn't receive any funding, so last year we received a portion. So that is now increasing for the year, although we're not to the same levels as what we were. That work is specifically for executing specific projects within the out areas of Defence Research Institutes, and is also guided by the Defence Research Board as that is executed. We're also looking to improve the financial position of the dockyard. Now we'll also just in the next slide talk about the challenge. But it is, we are trying to supply the required capacity for all the maintenance and refit work to be conducted for the Navy. So it is a balancing factor there within the amount that is available for that. We're also trying to still continue with the drive to improve the financial position for the sustainability of the group. We then look at the challenges. As stated, we are looking at new revenue streams, so also increasing services for existing revenue streams that we already established. But the total contribution is still not substantial for the organization. The funding for the defence research and development facilities is not sufficient to cover the full cost. They therefore do need to have commercial revenue, and that is improving after the COVID-19 impact. So although it's not to the pre-COVID levels, as that is a lot of work that we do for foreign entities, foreign countries at the research, the test facilities of Okalpan and Geratech in specific. The main expenditure, as I stated, is personnel cost. We're also experiencing the same pressure as other public service entities in terms of increases. And as that is increasing at a higher level than our revenue, it's a balancing to retain capacity and capability, but also looking at affordability for the organization. In terms of the dockyard, we do have a significant shortfall in the pre-funding of the post-retirement medical benefit liability with a value of plus minus 117 million. So we are also looking to see how we can continue with funding that within the organization's surplus funds that we do generate. Chair, on the next slide is just the three different segments that we report in terms of Armscor. It's Armscor Corporate, Dockyard, and Research. And it just shows you the contribution from the different facilities with a net effect of 24.3 billion for Armscor Group. We are managing the group on the group level, and there is a portion of cross-subsidization to maintain the capability of all the different areas. So that is the way we run the company. In terms of the next 2 years, it shows that for the current year, we have a positive figure of 24.3, which then remain positive for the next 2 years, although it's slightly decreasing in those 2 years. There are certain assumptions also included in the third year that we must resolve certain non-funded areas, which will, if we can't get additional revenue from those areas, we'll have to see how we then deal with those specific areas. So that deals with the financial portion. I'll then proceed with the records review of the AG's report that they did in December 2022. On financial management, they basically reported on financial material misstatement that was in the financials regarding commitments. And partly what led to that was the the disparity of our financial systems. And I mean, it was intended that we would have had a ERP already. Unfortunately, we had a non-compliant bid, and we have to go out and we have to redo the process. The tenders did close in April, so we are busy evaluating that in order to improve that. In the meantime, we did include additional monitoring controls to make sure that we try to prevent the mistake from the manual interventions from consolidating 4 different financial systems figures into one set of financials. In terms of performance management, there was a mention about the standard procedures for how we measure and how we calculate. That must be properly stated. That was done. It's completed. In terms of procurement and contract management, there were 3 areas raised. The procurement plan wasn't always adhered to. We do have a lot of procurement, but the amount of time that we take was a bit long. So we have implemented oversight at the executive level to see that we move as planned in terms of that process. There was also an issue about the training of SCM officials, and that is an ongoing aspect in terms of all new regulations and the compliance application thereof. There was also an issue about the review of the SCM structure. We did do a maturity assessment on SCM department. That structure is currently being reviewed and then to be implemented as reviewed. In terms of compliance management, there was just a statement of the prevention of irregular expenditure. So the SCM policy was updated, and also the training of SCM related matters is ongoing. We'll find that sometimes lead to irregular expenditure where, for example, a CIDB rating is not correctly applied. Then that deal led to a irregular expenditure. So that ongoing training for SCM people to try and prevent that. In terms of IT management, there was certain system vulnerabilities identified, but that was due to certain licenses not in place. That has been procured and now is in place. That's specifically related to Microsoft licenses that were standing at that stage. In terms of oversight and monitoring, it's an issue about the capacity of the internal audit division. The requirements to capacitate were approved. We did add more personnel within internal audit, and they are busy with the recruitment of that. They also have a panel of service providers brought in to assist them with a certain backlog, but also to execute specific investigations for which they do not have the capacity for. So then they also request external services to assist in specific forensic investigations, that type of investigation if required. In terms of the oversight and monitoring, it was just highlighted that the shareholders' compact was still not signed, and that was completed. All shareholders compact was signed by the minister, and that is now complete. Thank you, Chair.
In conclusion, it's the decision of the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans that they approve this Armscor Corporate Plan 2023 for promulgation within Armscor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. Colleagues, the matter is on the table. The document is on the table for discussion. Now I will recognize the hands. Mr. Mare, I can see your hand. You may come in first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Armscor, for the presentation. Advocate Mbada. I want to start off by just being a bit critical about certain things and just challenging some of the things that has been said. The first thing is one of the main tasks of the of Armscor, as has been said in this presentation this morning, is, and if I can quote on that one of that first, the mandate is basically to acquire defense material on behalf of the DoD and to manage the Armscor dockyard, and then manage strategic facilities on behalf of DoD. You giving yourself, in terms of targets, I think at 95% of compliance. You have an increase in spending on defense material acquisition of about 10.8 million. However, it has been reported lately that DoD only gives you 50% for project management. Now that sounds a bit contradictory to me, and I'm wondering whether we get good value for money. And obviously I would love to see and hear the response from Armscor on that. I think one must be, we are empathetic to Armscor because we know that they are hamstrung by the fact that there are not budgets for capital acquisitions. However, we must deal with the realities and the figures just very honestly and realistically. The second one is, I see that there's, in terms of expenditure, there's an increase in administration expenditure of 21 million rand. Now, 21 million rand must be justified. And I just wanted to have more clarity on that. And I specifically want to inquire about matters that I have raised in the past. And I just want to find out to what extent is Armscor still involved in sponsoring golf tournaments, sponsoring hunting trips, sponsoring going to musical festivals, things like that, which is probably unnecessary in this time. But I just wanted to get a feeling from them on that. Then if you look at the financial position budget going forward, we have got a situation where it seems very positive, especially in terms of the additional revenue. And that changes from a deficit of this year to a surplus of 24.3 million rand in this new financial year. Now, if one look at the revenues, the big difference that is giving us that surplus is basically rendering of services. Now, it changes from 198 million, 199 million to 367.4 million rand. So that is where the big difference is and where the surplus is coming from. How realistic is that? And how achievable is that? Is that guaranteed services and revenue from those services, or is that the variable amount and which can change in the future? I also want to specifically look at expenses. Chairperson, there's now someone, I don't know from whose side is it in the background, but I just wanted to get also to the other side of revenue is expenses. And our direct personnel costs is still incredibly high. It is 70% of the budget. Is that realistic, or should it be lower? What is it idealistically in this regard? The direct personnel cost increases by 109 million rand, basically 110 million rand. How do we justify that? What is the salary increases, the percentages that we will see that is provided in here? And have you provided it for bonuses, and bonuses based on what? Is it only those KPIs, or is it actual delivery to the Department of Defense? Then one concern that I've got in expenses is specifically the group capital expenditures, which increases from 277 million rand to 350 million rand. So that is significant increase in capital expenditure. And in that, if you break that down, the major cost is capital increases that is increasing from 7.1 million to 35.7 million. Can you give us an explanation of what that 35.7 million rand will be, and how essential is that capital expenses? And then something that is probably that one can look at and see whether that is justified. Motor vehicles. What is the need? The last year you've provided for 2.8 million rand, and I assume that was spent. Now there's another 4.9 million rand in motor vehicles. How do you justify that, and how is that that being calculated? If you look at the dockyard, I just wanted to find out. On the one side, you say that you have a turnaround strategy and you've been successful in that. However, there's still a shortfall in the dockyard. And for us, the dockyard is very, very important. And, you know, if we want to have the dockyard play a major strategic role in the future in terms of naval maintenance and upgrades, we need to know that shortfall is justified and how you have arrived to that. The expenses to the dockyard, we are seen as increased by 93 million rand, you know, to about 503 million rand for the new financial year. How did you justify that, and whether you can give us information what that is for? Then in terms of sweating of assets, you haven't given us a lot of information with regards to increase of sweating of assets. It seems like the sweating of assets is only based on the assets and the property owned or under the direct control of Armscor. Can I inquire about the sweating of assets of DOD and SANDF assets? We know, you know, that we have talked about this for many years since the previous parliament, and we haven't really seen, you know, a lot of sales, a lot of action, and a lot of success in that regard. Then I also just wanted to ask about Project Hoefyster, whether you can give us any feedback with regards to the progress and the status quo of Project Hoefyster, and what we expect to be spending on that. Then you have issued an RFI for APVs, and last week we had a presentation from the Department of Defense, which indicated that for border management, RFIs is an unfunded requirement. So what is the status of, you know, this project? Is there any expectation that that will materialize in the year that we are in, and even over the medium term? Or how should we approach that? Then, Chairperson, I want to ask about the revenue generations from Alcan Pan. Alcan Pan was very successful in the past for tests by various defense industry companies, and even from abroad, where foreign nations came and made use of Alcan Pan. But I don't see specific indications of what we can expect from the increase in Alcan Pan. I know that over the last 2 years, COVID was given as a reason why Alcan Pan was not very successful, but now we are post-COVID, so we need to know what is the process in that regard. Then in terms of staff, I've dealt with staff, and then I just wanted to ask about Denel, further on Denel, over and above Hoefyster. Biro, where do we stand with Biro? I have seen the other day driving into Cape Town at Damon's dockyard. It seems like the second IPV is been in the water. What is the progress with regards to the number 2 and number 3 multi-mission insult patrol vessel? And then I also want to find out, Chairperson, you will recall when we visited the Nel Aeronautics, we became aware of call it a costing funding model arrangement between Armscor and government and on the one side and the NEL on the other side. That I think you have raised the matter. It seems like Armscor and Defence is basically responsible for the financing of the operational side of the NEL. Is that correct? And is there a situation where in your role as acquisition agent for the Defence Force that you have to give preference to the NEL when comparing quotes for certain projects? In other words, where you will favor them compared to quotes from the South African defence industry. I just need to know where we stand with that and how that funding model works and how that might impact going into the future. Chairperson, I just wanted to ask another thing is in the personnel figures comparison, you have given us an indication of a total permanent employees projected for the past year and one for the coming year. It seems like Armscor, excluding R&D, and then R&D and Armscor Dockyard is 100% exactly the same staff figures. Is that an oversight, or is it just coincidental that that is the case? Chairperson, I will stop there, and if there's any unclear answers, I will raise it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Washington Mafanya.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the Group COO of Armscor. I would like to thank you, and I'm happy about this input as well. A lot of ground has been covered by Mr. Mare, but mine, I've just got a couple of questions. I'm on load shedding, Chair, so I won't just be visible on the screen. The issue of the composition of the board, I would like to know, is the board still intact? If not, why not? And then the effectiveness of the board, if there are other members who are not part of that, of the board itself. The other part is the issue of when you say the audit backlog. The audit backlog, it talks to the same presentation, because once you say you have an audit backlog, what does it mean in terms of what you have just presented? Are there any other matters that are left behind because of the audit backlog? So I would like to know what the impact it does on the entire presentation that you have just put forward to us. And in the recent past, we had a visit to your provision, in particular on gerotech test facility. You could see that there's not much functionality there. And some of the other areas where we also traveled to, there was a shortage of activity in those facilities. So, and when coming to the presentations and the demand for more budgets to be increased, and they talked to the very similar areas where we could see that there is no movement, there's no activity taking place there, or the activity is minimal compared to the money that is spent into those facilities. The question that I have, how do you monitor the output versus the budget that is spent on those activities? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So these were the only hands. Thank you very much, colleagues. Over to CEO.
I will invite colleagues to respond in detail on some of the questions that were raised by the two honorable members. Suffice to say, Chair, I'll touch on a few aspects that were raised by Mr. Murray. The 50% rating. You will note, Mr. Murray, from the article that it does acknowledge that we get measured in terms of the post-placement of the orders or of the contracts. In particular, if you look at, we were penalized in terms of one of the projects is Project Ufesta. Chair, I think you're on record to highlight at various engagements and the visits by the committee to the Denel facility where the project is currently being managed. Some of the penalties or the ratings are linked to projects like the GBET program, which is not fully funded. There are a number of other projects that are sitting at Denel. So that's the context. But it is true that there are challenges in terms of the budget cuts, but also, a number of projects were not or are not in a position that we can place them because there are insufficient funds. And some of them were in execution, but then we ran short of funding. So it's a combination of those aspects. But I'll also ask the team to just expand on that in terms of the methodology followed by the GOT. Chair, in terms of the golf tournaments, music shows, I must say we manage our cost tightly. Yes, there is a provision or a budget for the marketing effort, but it is done within good reasons, Chair. If I were to just reflect, I think we can supply the figures, but it is really managed tightly, Chair. We have not hosted any golf tournaments. Yes, we will participate and get 4 balls in certain golf tournaments to invite key stakeholders. But there's prudency around what we do. I don't think it's a free for all type of a system, and it goes through various processes. The CFO checks, then I will also approve. So whilst there is a budget, but it doesn't mean that we just spend, uncontrollably so. But we can provide. It's a negligible amount that we spend towards the marketing efforts. The issue of deficit versus surplus, I think it's informed by a snapshot at a particular point in time, and we do not, whilst we had an expectation that we need, to be paid certain, amounts for various projects. If we see that, for an example, like the CFO has indicated on the technology funding. So at that point, we took a view to say it is not in the bank, so we can't then realistically project that as if we do have that money. So we're very cautious in terms of that. So we don't want to commit ourselves and say, yes, that money will be paid, and yet there is this uncertainty. So we take a very, a realistic picture insofar as that. But I think the CFO will expand on that. The motor vehicles, I think we can give breakdown there, Chair, but it must also be noted that we have our own security personnel that actually, has to, for an example, patrol the premises. We look at an institution like Gerotech, which is a vast area, so that we need to cover. We've got AP Logistics, which is in the business of delivering and distributing goods and services. But again, and then also we have the vetting team, which must crisscross the country in doing their work. So they use these vehicles as well. Swearing of assets, Chair, I think the team, Professor Mkaza will deal with that, and the CFO. The UAV initiative, I'll ask Prof to deal with it, and to a certain extent, maybe Mr. Tefu. Alkan Pan, Prof will address that. Progress on Pyro, I think is progressing very well, but Mr. Tefu will deal with that. I think we are expecting the third vessel early next year. We will receive the second vessel this year, but you will give us the precise dates. The costing model for Denel, Chair, whilst I will ask CFO and Mr. Tefu to respond to that, but it is, maybe Chair, I must explain. I mean, when you deal with the maintenance and repair, it's a structured, contracting for all industry players. And you take certain elements, like, I mean, you will have your consumables factored in. You will then have your labor component, which is, you will then determine what's the level of the skills that are required. If it's for a mechanic, you look at the CIFSA rating and the CIFSA, annual rate of increases of those skills. But you will always need personnel to conduct the maintenance, because whilst you have the consumables, but then they need, if for an example, we are overhauling an engine, so the replacement of the components of the old and then with the new components, you will need labor to do that. But sometimes you'll find that there's a misunderstanding of this labor rate dispensation, because other people will translate and say, you are paying salaries for Denel. But in any contract, it will always be a maintenance contract. You will pay as a customer the labor component of the work that is, and then you will determine how many hours it's required, to maintain or to overall an engine or to do the upgrade. So once those hours are determined, and then there will be a formula that is applicable, and there will be an agreement to say, is this the work that must be done by a mechanic or a technician? All those issues. Our teams, for an example, if you take the Air Force as an example, there are lower committees where you have Armscor and the Air Force teams, technical teams, who will be looking at the structure of that contract before you even engage them. But sometimes there will be misunderstanding to say, but why are you making provision for the labor component? And then obviously we will then say, but surely, I mean, you will need people to do that work. But I will also ask Mr. Tefu and Hera to really maybe zoom in. And then the third element will be your profit margin, your markup for Denel in this case. But it's an issue that, Chair, we are quite prepared to further probe, and maybe, in another forum we can come and present and show at a high level, maybe in the form of examples of previous contracts, and say this is how we contract, and these are the elements, this is what we're paying for. So, Chair, that exercise can be done. Personnel, Chair, I haven't checked it, but I will find it strange that the numbers remain the same, because we do have resignations. There are positions from time to time that we will take a view that we're not filling those positions. But I will verify if any of my colleagues have managed to go around that, they can by all means respond to that. Chair, moving on to Mr. Mafanya's questions. Is the board still intact? Yes, the board is still intact, because we do correct as the board, but it is also a well-known fact that, Chair, that we do what I would call vacancies in the board, and that is really public information. But as it stands, we do correct. But yes, it is correct that there are, I would say, 4, so to speak, vacancies at potential at the board at the moment. But we do correct. Audit backlog, Chair, that audit backlog talks to the ad hoc, projects. So typically, you will, as we do our work as manager, you will pick up that there are problems in a particular area, which is not part of the scope or plan of the internal audit. So we will then come with these ad hoc requests and say, can you check this? There's something suspicious looking there. And obviously it means now they have not planned to do that work, but it is a necessity so that we can, get to the bottom of some of these issues. So that's the backlog we are referring to. Or there will be an allegation, whether via our anonymous processes, then we need to, because it's an allegation made, we need to make sure that we get to the bottom of it and close that assignment. So it talks to that, but not in the ordinary sense of what the auditors are expected to do, and assuring that what we do and making sure that it's audited and the financial reporting is checked. So everything that needs to be done that is in the plan is executed to a large extent. But of course, even with that, we do realize that there are various compliance requirements that they need to comply with in terms of their professional bodies, where they came to assess and say, but look, there is some scope of work that maybe we need to cover so as to ensure that we meet the benchmark. And those vacancies were recommended to say we need to strengthen here, we need to strengthen there. They arose as such, so as to make sure that we strengthen the report, the work of the auditors. Gerotech, shortage of functionality, I'll ask Professor Mkaza to respond, but bulk of the cost goes towards the upkeep and the maintenance of that facility. And you will see that it's a vast facility, which also, it really requires that we dig deep in our pockets just to maintain those speed tracks. It's a very expensive facility to run. But yes, it is expected that there is a decrease or decline in terms of the work that we do in vis-a-vis what the facility can really offer. That is largely, Chair, you will know that we had clients like Daniel who did a lot of testing and some of the industry players. And as they are impacted, we do feel it. And hence we have reached out to a number of other government departments that we have identified that we felt they can benefit from a facility like Gerotech. But I'll also ask Professor Mkaza to talk through those issues and some partnership that we are exploring. I thank you, and I will ask the CFO, followed by Mr. Teku, and then Prof. Mkaza will conclude. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just on Maria's question about the deficit, I think the CEO tried to explain that in 2021 we did not get any funding for our dairies. So there was no technology funding allocated during that year. We only executed work that was still rollover from the previous year, which were not concluded then. So in last year, there was an allocation again for the defence research dairies, but some of the contracts came late. And we only placed some of those agreements late, which meant that they can also not execute all the work in the past year. So some of that work will also be done in the future period. So that's why the actual work for commercial, what we say is other revenue is increasing. It's basically funding allocated by the Defence Research Board for specific projects to be executed by our dairies. There's the portion of commercial revenue that we include basically increased from 6 to 8%. So it's not a big increase in terms of as a portion of the total revenue. So the revenue at risk is not that high percentage included in that figure. In terms of expenditure, direct personnel cost, 69%, yes, it can be high, but we are basically a service organization, and we also limit the other expenditure. if we did spend a lot on others, the percentage of personnel as a percentage of total would have been lower. But seeing that we also really reduced the other costs and just had the direct personnel cost, it seems high as a percentage of the total at this stage. We did include a 6% increase in terms of the market surveys for salary increases. We are still busy with negotiations. We are also under pressure due to the allocation what the public service did get. So we are still busy with that process. We did not include any bonus in the budget for any of those 3 years. So there's no bonus included. Bonuses will only be considered if there's sufficient funding at the end of the year, and if that justify that, that will then be a discretionary allocation from the board itself. So in terms of the capital expenditure, I think in the corporate plan, we also reflect that money that was not spent in the past year is included again. So there is a high percentage of capital expenditure reflected in the budget. It basically relates to the building and infrastructure. That's the maintenance of the Armscor building. We haven't maintained or really have upgrades of the Armscor building in 30 years. So we are busy with upgrades on the Armscor building in terms of our generators, our cooling systems, our lifts, our interior carpets, those type of things. So there is a large amount budgeted for that. The computer software that increases is basically the ERP that we provided for. So that is in essence the biggest amounts included in the capital expenditure. I think this year did speak to the motor vehicles. Like I said, we have a AB logistics, a fleet of transport vehicles. In Alkapan, we also have lifting equipment, things like that for the ammunition that they need to transport. That's included in that 4.8 million. It doesn't really make a provision for normal sedan vehicles. I mean, that's not what we really buy. We might buy 1 or 2 of them, but it's not really the main of that specific items. Okay, then in terms of expenditure of the dockyard expenditure increase will mainly be in terms of personnel costs. So you'll also see that the other costs are very low in terms of what the other type of costs that they do spend. So it's actually getting capacity to execute the work for the Navy. So that's where the main increase in the dockyard expenditure will lie. In terms of, I think, maybe just on the costing model, I think the chair also explained that. So you'll remember, you note that if you require a capability to be there for your own use, somehow you'll have to fund that capability. Because that capability is not really executing work for other entities this stage. So if you want that facility, you need to fund it in some manner. And that's why there's a fixed cost component to say that if you don't pay that fixed cost, that facility will not be there at all. So then you can buy space for tomorrow, but there will be nobody to implement the work. So when at the stage when we agreed those contracts with Penel, they actually had more work than what they have now. So at that stage, we actually got better terms, and we escalated those tariffs up till now. And I mean, there's where the disagreement currently also exists in terms of the renewal of the contract. Because they say that is not sufficient to cover their cost anymore. So that's why we still have a long negotiation process with them to look at the reasonableness of that cost. Because initially, they also had other clients, so there was some sort of cross-subsidization from other areas, which is not currently there. And therefore, they say they can't maintain that facility if the fixed cost is not paid. And I must just say, it's not specific to Denel. There are also other areas in terms of other contracts that we place that there is a specific fixed cost component for the retention of that capability, where it's specifically for the DoD. There might be radios that we need to repair. They're not repairing those type of radios for anybody else. So that specific people must be there and must be available for that specific service. I think
Good morning, Chair, members of the Portfolio Committee, Mike, the Deputy Minister, and other esteemed colleagues. I'll respond to the questions that were duly asked by Honorable Maria, in particular on the issue of where we are in terms of Project 2000. Chair, in the month of April this year, the Project Control Board was convened, wherein it was resolved that phase 1 of the project be completed, as well as once successfully completed, that we embark on phase 2, the manufacturing aspect. of this particular project. I must hasten to add that the approval is subject to the other relevant approval that still has to be obtained from other fora within the Department of Defense. Secondly, Chair, this will entail that we renegotiate the contract with Denel in terms of cost schedule as well as technical performance, and this is ongoing. However, we are not at this stage in a position to give a definitive price. As I have indicated, we are still renegotiating those particular terms with Denel. On the issue of Project Biro, Chair, you're quite, the Honorable Mare was quite spot on. As you know, the first vessel has already been delivered. The second vessel is near completion. So it's on schedule. Similarly, with the third vessel, Damon has already started with the construction of the third vessel, and we envisage that all this the vessel will be delivered on time, on schedule. Further, the Honorable Mare asked the issue of the preference on Denel. Chair, we don't give any particular preference on Denel. However, where there's a competitive bidding process, as I said, there won't be any preference given to Denel, because it will be a number of companies that would have submitted to their bids. So it will be undertaken on a competitive bidding process, meaning the bidder who scores the highest points will then win the bid. However, on single sources, where, for instance, we are the OEM of the privation equipment, it will essentially be a single offer from Denel. We'll entertain such an offer. However, it still has to Denel still has to give us a competitive price. The fact that they are a single source does not give them the exclusive right to give us an uncompetitive price. If it's uncompetitive, we'll still renegotiate that particular price offered by Denel to ensure that we still are in a position to place a contract where Denel gives us a competitive price. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I may, to give some responses on R&D. And again, good morning, Chair and members of the Portfolio Committee. Chair, let me start with questions around Alkanban. Yes, it is indeed true that we were impacted by the COVID, and Alkanban is getting back to business because the international borders have now been opened, and our clients are coming back to us who are projecting sales of 50 million. This year, it could be better, but it's an indication with regards to some of the contracts we're negotiating, that clients are again coming back and showing interest. There was a question also around who our clients in the main locally, Chair. It's your Reuters, your Denel RDM, as we know, and of course, internationally, it's clients from countries like Singapore, Germany, Italy, and France. Those are our clients. I must point out that Alkanban in the main, funds itself through these commercial contracts. It is not so much funded as a strategic entity by the DoD. Moving along to Gerotech, Chair. Again, the honorable member, I could not recall now from which party came from, is correct. In that, there's little activity at Gerotech at the moment, Chair. And that is because Gerotech is currently, funded from commercial sales. And the upkeep is through Armscor itself. It is a strategic facility as well, but it does not receive any little or no funding from the Department of Defense. Overall, Chair, we also need to point out that the funding from the RDB came quite late, The DoD had to put together something because in the previous years there was not funding. That needs to be looked into. It is not sufficient. So one of the ways we are now, and we've been actually in looking at, covering that shortfall, is through the dual use technologies. We have some in-house as Armscor, but there's a number of collaborative agreements we are negotiating with other entities who sees us as a partner. And we believe through that strategy, we'll increase our portfolio on dual use technology and be able to generate some revenue from that. I do not know if I have. Yes, on the question of UAV, Chair, we started to look into it seriously. There is some limited capability in UAVs, but having seen the trends around the world, we see this as another area, that we could develop, mature capability for ourselves. We started the process, in-house to develop the strategy. And equally, we are also engaging with certain partners, because one of the things you also want to do is to shorten the learning curve, and at the same time being able to speak to your markets and also to the requirements of your clients. The work has started in earnest in that area, and we believe we'll be in a position of adding it as one of our mature capability. At this point, Chair, perhaps one does not want you to go into the detail as to who the partners with. Maybe we'll have opportunity next time once we have progressed, around this area to give more detail into it. So I will stop it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I think that we've covered the questions that were raised.
My apologies. I was looking for the thing. All right. Before you go away, I recognize the hand of, maybe let me take Thabo, and then Thabo Mutla, and then come back to
myself
and yourself too. All right.
Yeah, just
sure. Okay. Thabo.
All right. Thank you, and good morning, Chair, to you and members and everyone on the platform. Just a few and a quick one, Chair. Can the CEO or the board members that are present in the meeting, with regard to the effectiveness required from the board, can they assure us that with those vacancies that are in the board, they are comfortable, they are able to perform their duties and responsibilities effectively and efficiently, or they are struggling? And what are the challenges? What steps have they followed to ensure that these vacancies are reported to the executive or authority and they are attended? Because I want to believe, Chair, that the number of the board members is determined by the amount of work to be done at that particular level. Therefore, if there's a shortage, unless if they are comfortable, it's fine. The next board must be reduced to the current number so that we save cost if there's no need for those vacancies to be filled. And how long have those vacancies been vacant? The process undertaken to ensure that they are attended to, that will be appreciated if it is shared with us, Chair. Secondly, and the last, to what an extent can Armscor confidently say that with the presentation that they have made, the budget, so forth and so on, in line with their mandate, which is informed by their existence to support the South African National Defence Force, to what an extent can they confidently say that with the current budget, they will be able to effectively and efficiently support the South African National Defence Force? I'm raising this question, Chair, because most often than not, we meet with the DOD, we meet with Armscor separately. To some extent, we also engage with DINER, but there are gaps that needs to be closed between all these entities, which are supposed to, in the main, support the work that the South African National Defence Force is supposed to be doing in terms of their role and their responsibilities as entities that are established with the sole purpose of supporting the National Defence Force. And we find that to be disorientated in terms of that with complaints coming from the services of arms of services from the National Defence Force. So can they take us into confidence that everything that they do, they are ensuring that they stick to that mandate? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray.
Chair, just two matters. The one is just to get certainty and clarity on the financial position. The improvement of the net revenue has changed from a deficit of 16.1 to 24.3 surplus. So that's an improvement of 40.4 million rand, which is significant. And when you go and look at the funding, and I'm not quite sure if I understood the explanation correctly. The rendering of services has improved with, or increased with 168.6 million rand. And when you go and analyze the financials and you look and see what has contributed to that, it seems like it was Armscor Corporate. Now, Armscor Corporate has improved 161.6 million rand. So it seems like there's a correlation between the additional services rendered and the improvement in Armscor Corporate from a deficit to a significant, to a 54.3 million rand surplus. If they can just explain to us that I understand that in terms of whether that is secured or whether that is just projected. In other words, uncertainty, depending, there's certain conditions, so that we can compare in the future to those projections and whether they've achieved their objectives. Then secondly, the matter that has not been reported on, but that has been mentioned briefly, is AB Logistics. I recall in the past, we have received information of AB Logistics. In other words, what is the expenses to AB Logistics? One must remember that AB Logistics is the logistical company belonging to Armscor. So in other words, that contributes to the profit and loss of Armscor, but it provides services, traveling arrangements, even the transportation of munitions under contract and permits and things like that, like the containers that they've moved from Simonstown under permits, under import permits. Whether they can give us information with regards to AB Logistics, so that we can have information on how much is spent there and whether AB Logistics is a net revenue generator or a net cost that will add to that is part of the overall group position.
Can they give
Thank
us
you.
that information in writing? Because I don't think they have.
Sure. No problem.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. So that information on AP Logistics will be in writing within a week from now. I'm sure we're not asking too much. Can you deal with the other questions, Group CEO?
The board members.
Ms. Mashinini, there was a question directed to the board. It's just that they are not appointing themselves, and the minister is not here to deal with that question.
Yes. Okay.
Chair, but they can speak to the impact of those vacancies on their workload.
Can you just talk to the impact on the workload that you have to take more than it was initially planned? Please talk to that.
Okay, Chairperson, thank you very much.
Tell me who have resigned and when were these resignations effected? Maybe let's start from there.
Chairperson, current.
You are breaking. Can you hear me? Can you hear colleagues?
I cannot hear anything, Chair.
Yes. All right.
Okay. The resignations as at present sits at 4 individuals. We had Ambassador Pepani who had resigned. And
sorry, who resigned?
Sorry. Of office came up.
Okay, can we start afresh? Who resigned? Okay, Group CEO, can you deal with the resignation? I don't think
General Pepani.
General Pepani, right?
Yes.
When did she resign?
It's last year. I do not remember the month. Last year, Chairperson, around March, April.
Or early, okay, first quarter, 2021, right?
And
2022, and then?
Ntate Motimele. Term of office came up, yes.
Term expired, right?
Expired term of office, thank you.
Right.
And then we had Dr. Lubisi.
Dr. Lubisi, right?
April 2023.
April 2023, right?
And then Ms. Matenche.
Ms. Matenche, right?
She'll finish month end of May.
This May?
Yes.
Or she's ending month at the end of May?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, 2023. Okay, so in other words, from the board of how many members?
Okay, in terms of the act, we were 9. So we currently are 7, 5 non-executive directors, with 2 being the CEO and the CFO.
No, we mean people appointed outside. The non-executive.
5 non-executive directors, Chairperson.
So 5 out of 9.
5 out of 9. That's correct.
Okay. And the workload?
What we did, we looked at the existing skill sets in terms of the terms of reference and the mandates that we have to carry through the board, as well as the board committees. I can comfortably say that the workload has been managed well at the board level. and we are a bit thin at the committee level in the sense that Ms. Matenche's resignation, being a CA, leaves a vacuum in terms of a skill set of the Audit and Risk Committee. And we also identified defense as well as engineering as skill sets that would be good to enhance the existing board member skill sets. Because the current skill sets in place are in corporate governance, foreign relations, communication, transformation, and human relation, finance management, as well as commercial law. So I've like just grouped them across the various members. So in terms of the type of company that is, we're thinking that if we would get, I think, skill sets within the defense industry, also engineering skill sets and SCA in particular. And this information has been communicated with the minister, and we are of the understanding that she is addressing the matter.
Okay. No,
Thank you.
you. All right. Can we deal with the other questions? Thanks, Ms. Mashinini, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the second question from Mr. Mutre. Chair, where we are, I think, in terms of what were expected by the Act or at the Armscor mandate, ours, Chair, is to ensure that we place contracts and, of course, then manage those contractors as such towards the delivery chain. So in terms of the skills that are required and the resources internally, Chair, we are well placed, Chair. I think we might have gaps here and there, but in the whole, we do have the requisite skills, Chair. Where it becomes a challenge, Chair, and we are seeing also some of our engineers resigning precisely because of the challenges around the budget cuts, Chair, where we are unable to place contracts or contracts gets deferred because there is no funding, Chair. So typically some of the professionals, they pride themselves in what they have attained. And if you don't keep them busy in terms of the expectation they have around these projects, or if projects gets deferred, you can't place contracts and so on, then it becomes an issue, Chair. So in terms of that, yes, I mean, with what Mr. Mutre is telling us, we do sometimes have these discussions with the arms of services. But Chair, core to these issues is the underfunding that we are faced, where now you either defer or you postpone these contracts in terms of execution because you can't commit resources. And to a large extent, Chair, if you look at Denel and our exposure to Denel, it's more than 60%, Chair. So you can imagine then these frustrations are about to arise because Denel is not delivering on cardinal projects. We counted the other day, Chair, there are about 80, contracts that are sitting with Denel. And more than, 60% of those are way behind. You can imagine the ripple effect, Chair, that does. And it's no surprise that you will have these tensions. However, Chair, we went on a breakaway recently about a few days ago, where we then say, looking at what Armscor was designed to do and the role they played, where we operated at a particular level of project management or of acquisition. Currently, we're saying perhaps we need to work with the operational teams of
a large
Recording in
component of
progress.
cost of sales, if you look down in the table itself, which increased from 90 to 130 million. So the biggest component of revenue in the improvement is in the R&D facilities environment, not an Armscor's environment. Armscor's figure, the net impact of that is not large. You'll see that the portion that we've budgeted for revenue from business enablement is not increasing to such a large extent. I think it's on 34 or something million. So it's not that large. So the biggest component of revenue coming in is for defense research facilities, where we're already carrying most of the cost of those employees. So even though we did not have revenue for that year, we already carried the cost for that employees. So we only had to appoint some more employees to execute the work for the past year. So once we come and report on the annual report, you'll see the improvement in the financials for the facilities. I think we're not going to report a negative figure for the year. So there is already improvement foreseen in the 16 million deficit. So that's why we're comfortable with the 40 million based on the current allocations that we have received. Chair, in terms of AB logistics, yeah, you have the two portions. You have freight and travel. In terms of the freight, we do allocate some portion of transfer payment to them for the service they render. They also do commercial work where they then render other services, the fee. So in terms of the freight portion, they do generate some money. It's not a large amount. And then in terms of travel, it's more service related where they're on a break-even position. So it's not a cost for the organization. So it's a net positive effect for AB Logistics, but we can give the detail available. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Can I just raise 4 questions? The Falcon 50 and Falcon 900. The contract was due to expire in March 2022. Okay. In fact, let me start by saying that there is only one serviceable Falcon 50, but we'll confirm if that is still the case. And the other two, Falcon 50 and Falcon 900, those two were still undergoing service. These are for VVIPs. And their contracts were to expire in March 2022. And last year in November, you said that you were to have the contract running from the 1st of December 2022. I need to check if that has happened, if the contract is in place as you undertook previously for these VVIP, contracts. And then the second one is the BPJ, the presidential jet. We only have one. The contract was to expire in November 2022. And in last year, around November, you said a new contract will be in place as from 1 December 2022. So I just need to check if those are in place. And then secondly, I'm now moving away from the VVIP jets. The Oryx. The Oryx, we only have 6 serviceable out of 39. The contract was to expire in March and it was extended to September 2023. All right, so it means that the extended contract will expire in September this year. the contract value was 768 million rand. That was to come from the Air Force. But there's a 300 million rand that came from the joint operations. If you could just explain the amount that the 300 million rand that came from the joint operations, what was it meant to achieve when there was this 768 million rand that was part of the contract, as it were. And then on the ROIFAC, you said the contract value was 463 million rand. That was the contract value from 2019 to 2022, and you extended it to 2023. But you also say that the MOA value, I don't know whether there's a difference between the contract value and the MOA value. You'll unscramble that for me. It was 1 billion rand. Now, just tell me what accounts for the difference between the 1 billion rand, that was a contract value, or MOA value for the contract period 2019 to 2022, and which has since been extended to September 2023. And the MOA value of 1 billion rand and the contract value of 463 million rand. When you explain these, and you have just said that with all the with some of the industry companies that you deal with, you do pay for fixed cost, or some elements of the fixed cost. Now, when you have this contract, when you say is a contract value, must I understand to mean that that is it's money allocated for the fixed cost, or within it there is some element for the on-demand services, for spares and so on? And if the answer to that is yes, how do you work out the ratio within that within the contract value? If the answer is no, I will understand it, because you people say that the contract value is for fixed cost only, and then for anything extra in terms of service required, they must give you more money. Additional, they must make funding, additional funding for that exercise. And then lastly, I just want to deal with the project bureau. You said they are on schedule, and last time you said the second one will be out by June 2023, and the third one September 2024. Can you confirm that those dates are still, we are still working towards those dates? And then on the project Hoofyester, there was going to be the project Hoofyester was between the bid was between the Finland company, that Pasha company, as well as Dinel. But whenever there are these discussions, I don't hear any mention of the Dinel partner, this Finland company that was responsible this Finland company that is part of the thing. Each time is Denel and Denel and Denel, but now there's no mention that in actual fact, there is a partner who was supposed to honor their part of the bid, whether they've actually honored their part of the bid. So those will be, and then lastly, in view of the challenges facing Denel, that Denel has not been able to produce credible financial statements, audited financial statements, as per the Auditor General for the past 5 years. The first 3 years of these 5 years, they received disclaimers. First year, second year, third year, all disclaimers. And then the last 2 years of this financial year, of these 5 financial years, they submitted their financial statements late and they are still undergoing audit. Now, in view of lack of financial accountability in Denel, do you think that the amount of money that we give to them is being applied for the purpose for which the money has been given to them? Is there accountability on how these funds are being expended by Denel? And thirdly, whether funding Denel in the manner we are funding it, Denel is different from any other company, it's a state company. Is this an appropriate way of funding Denel for purposes of maintaining the capability that it has? Or we need to look for a different way of funding Denel separate from the contractual arrangements we make with Denel? Over to you, sir. Thanks.
I will ask Mr. Defu to respond on the Air Force projects related to them, and then also deal with the issue of patri.
Good day, Chair. On the issue of the Falcons, Chair, you're quite right. There is one serviceable Falcon 50 is still serviceable. We have since placed a contract with an entity based in Lanseria, who are busy maintaining the two platforms. So there is a contract in place, and it was placed during the course of early this year, and we expect that in the next 4 months or so we'll have all the 3 platforms or the other 2 platforms up in the air. On the issue of the BBJ, we have a contract is still in place. It's a valid contract with South African Airways, technical on the BBJ. It ends at the end of June 2023. We have already negotiated a contract with a company that will be coming in to do the maintenance of this particular platform, and we envisage that by June or so, before the SAT contract ends, we'll be able to place this a new contract on this new entity. On the issue of the 2 platforms, the ORS as well as the REFOL, if I may just illustrate, due to shortage of funding, what we then did was the 1 billion that you referred to will be in essence a requirement value, meaning the total expenditure on the to actually do maintenance on this particular platform. So due to shortage of funding, what we will do is that because we're not given money right on the outset when we place this particular contract, we'll then have what we call a memorandum of agreement, where in the memorandum of agreement will cover the envisaged expenditure. But you'll find that at the placement of the order, we only have 400 million. So at the time of placement of the contract, we will then have 400 million, and we will contract the 400 million. As and when money becomes due and available, the contract will be amended so that at the end of the day, it covers the full requirement value if the money still keeps on coming. So the 400 million will constitute both the on-demand as well as the fixed cost. However, the skewedness of that ratio will be dependent on the nature of the requirement. But the 400 million will typically include both the on-demand as well as the fixed cost elements of the contract. The contracts you're quite right share the both and at the end respectively at the end of September 2023. On project Biochair, as we have indicated to Honorable Murray, the contract or the performance of this particular contract is ensured, and we are not experiencing any challenges at the moment with regards to the delivery of the second as well as the third vessel. On the yes, I'm confirming those particular days. The contractual dates.
The 300 million rand from joint operations when you had already contracted up to the tune of 786 million rand with Air Force. How did, can you just explain how the joint ops came into the picture?
To augment the total requirement, you may find that funding would typically come from two sources of funding. This is what happened in this particular element. You'd find that the placement or when the requirement was given to us, one particular arm does not have the full complement to be able to do work, and then the other arm of service will come in and in order to make the full complement of the total requirement value. On the issue of the project we faced, Chair, there's a story. Patria had a relationship with the DNL for the supply of, amongst others, the goods packages. When we realized that the contract was not being executed on schedule, in order to mitigate further damages to Armscor, we then instructed DNL to stop accepting, some of these work packages. What then Patria did? Patria then resorted to go into court to sue DNL for DNL to pay, the Patria the cost associated with the delivery of the goods packages. The matter is still in court as we speak. Thank you.
So, actual fact that Patria is actually demanding performance on the contract that they have that exists between Patria and DNL.
You are quite right.
And DNL is unable to honor that because of financial challenges.
You are quite right.
What exactly is Patria saying they've delivered and they are expecting payment on it? Which part of the contract that is in dispute?
There were certain subsystems to the project that were delivered by Patria, and DNL had to pay, as and when those goods packages are delivered. The expectation was that DNL would then pay Patria, but those goods packages were delivered, and as you quite rightly said, DNL was not in a position to pay for those particular goods packages.
Chairperson, if I may, while you are on contracts with Armscor, can I just inquire?
Sorry. Let me just finish this. I think I was muted. Does that speak
Yeah,
to
you were
the
muted.
7 production vehicles that were built in Finland?
Amongst others, Chair, as well as there were certain subsystems, as I indicated, that were delivered by Patria. So it's not only limited to that, but they also, as I said, the other subsystems that were delivered by Patria.
Were these 37 vehicles delivered?
I cannot, at the moment, Chair, vouch for that particular number. We still have to verify whether all 37 were delivered.
Okay. All right. So no, it's fine. But on the appropriateness of the funding model to Denel, given the fact that Denel's finances are in shambles, what would be your comment on that one? Whether this is an appropriate model that you are actually using?
Chair, to be honest, it's not an appropriate model. The CFO has also indicated that the challenge here is that we have got only one captive plan, which is the Air Force. And therefore, the expectation is that
I'm begging to hear you. Can you come closer to the mic, please?
Oh, sorry, Chair. I was just saying that it is not an appropriate model. As you quite know, Chair, the Air Force is the Denel's captive, client. The CFO dealt with this particular issue to say that in the absence of any further work to be conducted by the Denel, the expectation would be that the SAF would have to fund that particular capability, which is quite an anomaly. So I would agree with you that a different model outside of the contract is required in order to fund Denel appropriately. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm done with my own questions, colleagues. I think we can now move to the next item.
Chairperson, I was just wondering, while you're on the contracts, whether they've concluded on the Grippen's contracts. You will recall they've also reported last year that they were busy finalizing that, and then eventually it was obvious that it was only for 2 Grippen's. And whether there has been any progress in that regard, given that you have touched on maintenance contracts.
Okay, let me tell you what they said on Grippen's, so that we are on the same page. All right, on Grippen's, they've 13 unserviceable, 2 are beyond economic, what you call this, recovery, and 11 in long-term storage. And in November last year, they said that the Grippen's were grounded for about a year. And that's what they said in November last year. But they then said that there is now a contract in place from the 1st of September 2022 with SAAB. Can you confirm that? Can you confirm it?
We can confirm so, Chair.
And has the platform's situation improved since the last time? Or you're still having this problem?
We are
still has not changed.
Yeah, we are still experiencing challenges, particularly the issue of funding. So we have not really resolved the issue, but contractually, we have actually concluded the contract with Serbia.
All right. Okay, so let's leave it at that for now. Your budget, because it assists you to assist. The budget is for it assists you to acquire resources to enable the Department of Defense when it comes to the sustainment of its platforms and systems, and obviously support it. But we need to increase accountability in the manner in which you are able to, assist the Department of Defense or the Southern African Defense Force to bring back all these platforms into service. There's quite a lot, and the situation is deteriorating. In 2017, the situation, if you compare it to now, the now looks terrible. It means that instead of the situation improving with the resources that we make available, but it deteriorates almost every year, year in and year out. And it's not something we want to see happening. So with that, it will be approved, it will be supported, but the colleagues will debate that in the House. Colleagues, it remains for me to thank the group, the CEO, and the team for their presentation today, and until we meet again. Thank you very much, Group CEO and the team and the member of the board, Ms. Mashinini, for your attendance and sharing the information with us.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You are free to exit the platform anytime you want to, or you wish so. All right, let's then move to the next item on the agenda. It's the annual performance plan. There's been a delay in the submission, in the tabling of the DMV APP. I did inquire when they were supposed to have tabled, by when they were supposed to have tabled their annual plan. It was by the 30th of April. They had between the 9th of March to the 30th of April to table their annual performance plan. And it's late, and the practice is that the minister who is late must write to the speaker to give reasons for the late tabling and request condonment of the late tabling. That has not happened, but I leave that to between the minister and the speaker to deal with. We'll then take, because we now have the plan, it's signed, we'll take the presentation on it. Over to Deputy Minister.
Honorable Chair and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to present to the oversight the APPs of the Department of Military Veterans. And Chair, as you have just commented now, indeed the late submission of these plans is sincerely regretted. The delay was caused by the absence of an acting accounting officer in the department until this was resolved last week on Thursday, when we had the incumbent introduced to the department. And on that note, Chair, allow me to introduce to the Oversight Committee the new acting DG of the Department of Military Veterans, retired Vice Admiral Stongwane Musiwa Stongwane, who is the former head of the South African Navy. he is the person appointed by the minister to be our acting accounting officer. The plans that the department is going to share with the oversight chair, I just want to say that they are going to indicate what the outcomes we are aiming for in this financial year and what the outputs towards those outcomes are going to be that would be monitoring, what the performance indicators are going to be, and of course, the targets on a quarterly basis. To that extent, Chair, I do want to say that these plans, as they were being finalized, we're satisfied about one thing, which is that they do conform, they comply with the practice that they should make visible in the 3 main programs of the department, what outcomes are aimed for, and most importantly, to indicate what the performance indicators are going to be and the targets of those performance indicators per quarter. To that extent, the plans do conform with what was expected of the department. Furthermore, Chair, I do want to also say that the institutional policies on which these plans are based are shared in the presentation. However, it is prudent for us to indicate that many of these policies that are referred to that are the basis of these plans, it was our hope that during the year that ended in March this year, we would have updated some of those policies, especially the regulations that are governing the delivery of the different benefits and services. However, as the oversight by now know, the incapacity in the below capacity in the department, especially with respect to legal services, has not made this obligation to be met by the department. So it remains work to be done, the updating of the policies on which our plans are based. There is an analysis in the plans, honorable members, of the situation internally and externally that are a situation that is impacting on these plans. I just want to say to honorable members in advance that you will take note that with respect to this internal, factors that are impacting on the department, there are a number of things which are making the department not to be strong enough to execute its plans. And we hope that the plans that we are tabling will challenge the management to make sure that these weaknesses are addressed. And those include, as I've already, for instance, indicated, legislation, amending of legislation. The committee members should be aware that the amendment bill of the Principal Act, the Military Veterans Act of 2021, has been a long time coming. We still have not tabled the draft of that amendment bill, and it is a very important enabler or a limiting factor structurally But we also have, of course, issues around the human resource, vacancy rate within the department, utilization of resources, the ICTs of the department, organizational structure of the department. You'll see that within the plans, we still have not provided an updated organogram of the department as it should be the case. That project, it's what management was busy with from the second half of last year, but we're still waiting for an update on the restructuring of the department. I'm raising those things to say honorable members must be aware of the environment that is going to be impacting on the success or otherwise of the department in implementing the plans. The budget of the department in this financial year, colleagues will note that is at quite remarkably increased level. The budget is at 894.7 million. And it is plus minus 250 million above what used to be the average allocation of this department. And this is as a result of the Treasury intervention to release money for the payment of the pensions, the rollout of the pensions that we commenced on the 26th of April. With that said, Chair, I do want to invite the acting DG of DMV, Vice Admiral Songani, and the officials of the department to come in and take the committee through the plans. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Vice Admiral Songani, over to you, sir. Please unmute.
Thank you, Chairperson and Deputy Minister of Defense, and good morning to all of you members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense. Chairperson, I am here with the members of the DMV, and the presentation will be done by Mr. Yengo. But I would just like to say, Chairperson, coming into the department, the senior management of DMV agreed that we have to expedite the quick wins, which were identified at the work session. The first one, not in order of seniority, we said the quick wins that we can deal with is the disbursement of the military veterans pension, the realigning the budget internally, fast-tracking of the verification panel, reviewing of the regulations, review of the organogram, and lastly, we must also look at address the issue of the vacant posts. That's the quick wins that we've identified as the senior management of the DMV. I will then request Mr. Yengo to continue the presentation, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sengo, you just keep all the mandates, the legislation, and just goes to part B of your input, of your presentation.
Thank you, then, Chairperson, and good morning to you and the Deputy Minister, members of the Portfolio Committee, acting DG, senior members of the department, and then and all the guests that are in the meeting. As directed, Chairperson, I think maybe, Chairperson, it's prudent that I re-emphasize. I think acting DG has just highlighted some of these issues that as a department we're committing to for 23-24, which are low-hanging fruits, and some of the work has started in some of these areas, I must indicate. As also the Deputy Minister has indicated, the issue of the structure, there's some groundwork that has been done there. The issue of decentralizing of services to provincial offices, that work, there was work that was done previously. I think we're going to strengthen that. And also, I think the issue of realigning the budget to the available resources, we're also going to focus on that. One of the important issues, Chairperson, that we have indicated is the fact that enriching the work that was done through the presidential task team, that is that of coordination and facilitation mechanisms within the three spheres of government. So we are going to leveraging on the work that has been done already in terms of then mitigating against some of the challenges that have been in the department for some time. And we must acknowledge, Chairperson, the work that was done through the presidential task team. I think there are some good initiatives or good outcomes that have come out of that. One of the biggest one is the issue of the approval of the disbursement of the pension benefit, which we are really working flat out to get it paid as soon as possible. Then, as indicated, Chairperson, that the budget for the department for this financial year is it's 894 million rands, which goes up to 974 million rands for the 2024-25 financial year, and it increases to just over R1 billion for 2025-26, and the budget basically seeks to support, if I go then specifically to the targets of the department for this particular financial year. For program 1, there are 6 indicators. I think most of these indicators are just, administrative issues that they are compliance issues, mostly compliance issues, where we report this to National Treasury and the Department of Public Service Administration. Maybe here I can highlight that we've got a program that we have in the Department of supporting military veterans to write books and also to do poems, and lately we've added a composition of doing short films, not short films, documentaries for military veterans. That is also one of the things that we are anticipating that this year, that we are going to be launching up 6 books, which include documentaries for military veterans. In terms of how we're going to be reporting in administration in program 1, these are the how then we've structured it for the for quarterly reports. Then in program 2, which talks to where most of the benefits are, which is socio-economic support branch. This is nothing big has changed here, Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee, except to say that we are really excited about, the disbursement of the pension benefit. We have been working with we've appointed Government Pensions Administration Agency to be the agency that's going to be assisting us. And they've been providing us with regular updates in terms of the readiness and also in terms of the rollout plan that they've put in place. And we're quite comfortable that they will be able to pull this off. Already, with now the regulations which have been gazetted, GPA has been receiving quite a large volumes of application forms from military veterans who are going to be who are applying for this particular benefit. So we're quite excited, at least finally, that we now in this financial year will be able to disperse this benefit. And also maybe in this program, one of the challenges that have been there previously, that has really been causing challenges in the department, has been the slow delivery of houses to military veterans. There are initiatives led by the Honorable Deputy Minister, which are looking at unlocking the challenges, talking to Provincial Human Settlements Department to try and look at interventions or mechanisms on how to unlock some of the challenges that have been previously identified, so that we can fast track the delivery of houses to military veterans. And some of those issues, I think, have been dealt with, as I indicated earlier on, in the presidential task team engagements as we were going around to provinces. So in terms of then quarterly reports, this is basically how we have structured reporting for the department. When we do account to the portfolio committee, these are the targets that we've set ourselves out.
But why do you leave PP1 to houses to quarter four and nothing in the first quarter, second quarter, and the third quarter? You have just indicated the challenges and the extent to which you have not been able to deliver the houses to the military veterans. But instead of indicating so that we can measure your performance quarterly, you simply push it out to quarter four. It means that we can only come and talk about this in April next year.
Yes, thank you for that, Chairperson. What we have done, Chairperson, because of the nature of building a house, is that a house is takes some time to get it from ground until the roof level. So what we have done, when you look at the quarterly reports, and when we are going to even report for quarter one, we are going to be reporting on the progress that we are making to say perhaps how many military veterans have been approved, where the sites are, and in which projects are those sites located in, and what is the progress regarding the building of those houses in the sites. It's just, I think, a matter of that we couldn't really put that narrative we were limited by how then this was structured. But in terms of reporting itself, we are going to be as guided by the ministry, and also I think as commented by, as also directed, I think at some point by the portfolio committee, to say we need to report on the progress that we are making on a quarterly basis on those.
No, but I'm saying, I'm sorry, colleagues. I'm trying to pick up things I don't understand. I don't even want him to leave this slide. The P203, the PP1203 compensation benefit, okay, to military veterans, the delivery, access to healthcare services, and counseling. All of them, you report, you simply post performance in the last quarter. Now, there's nothing you can do to assess your performance. In fact, you can't even pin down your own staff to do anything when, in actual fact, they are expected to report on this at the end of the quarter. There's really nothing in between. I'm raising this point because the assumption is that this has been ongoing. Because it's been ongoing, the things that you had planned for last year will be delivered in January, March. In other words, you'll be delivering every month because this thing was long planned and the delivery was like rolling. So that to say that a house, you can't report in a house in the first month or second month, you can report it in the quarter. When you started with the program in the previous financial years, and it's been a rolling program, you can't tell me you can't report anything on quarter and even in the month of January. You can still report something in the month of January, but we're not dealing with the month of January. We're dealing with the month of March, because month of April, because it's the start of the financial year. You can still report something because it's a carryover. There will always be carryovers month to month that you can still report about. But just to report a blank, I just cannot understand this. But continue, but I've just expressed myself that to post 000 in the first quarter on essential benefits and only a global figure towards the last quarter, it doesn't wash. You may continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. We've taken note of that, Chairperson. And then, Chairperson and members, we move then to the last program of the department. As you all know, that we've got 3 programs in the department. This one talks to empowerment and stakeholder management. Within this department, I think, within this branch, sorry, the change that we are bringing here is that if in the past the education benefit used to be reported under program 2, but it has now been moved to program 3, where now we are trying to align the education benefit to the skills development program. And if you look at also the Military Veterans Act of 2011, those 2 benefits are clubbed together, but because of implementation, they talk to 2 different things. But also to assist us to spend the budget properly between the 2, because they are very interlinked. So we felt that they need to be brought together in this particular program. So in this particular program, by Chairperson, again, there's nothing really big that we are changing, except that if you look at PPI 308, it talks to public-private partnerships. The department, through its work, has identified the fact that from time to time, it needs, to work within partnerships so that it's able to leverage on other entities. So we felt that because it's going to be a big part of what we do, we need to report on which entities or on what partnerships is the department entering into. So that's the new indicator that we are bringing forth, that we are going to be reporting on going forward. However, the rest of the indicators, I think, is similar to program 2, socioeconomic support. Really the effort and the strength, as indicated, it's going effort and the effort is going to be now on strengthening the service delivery mechanism and how to improve how the department disperses all these benefits, because really we have experienced in terms of the challenges that we have experienced in the department. And then again, when we talk about quarterly targets, this is then how we are going to be reporting on. I think we've taken note, Chairperson, of the comment around packing, or monitoring or packing the number, or monitoring the outcome at in Q4. I think we'll relook at that. Then these are the risks. The department, as outlined also in the strategic plan of the department, I think the two additional risks that we have identified is fraud and corruption within the department, based on the experiences that we've had in the department, and also the business interruptions. Also, this one is also based on the lessons learned from the interruptions from either from COVID or from the unfortunate events that had happened around the country. I think in KZN, where businesses were interrupted. So we are putting for that one a business continuity framework, which then will guide us in terms of what happens in a case of a pandemic or an interruption, or in our area. Then we still have the 3 statutory bodies that are reporting, or that the department is supporting: the advisory council, the appeals board, which is meant to consider the appeals when the military veteran is not happy. The ministry is busy putting that appeals board, is setting it up. Advisory council is got full members appointed, and they are doing the work. And then the last one is South African National Military Veterans Association, which is also planning to go to conference very soon to elect its new leadership. And then as part of the requirement by the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation is that we must outline either possible infrastructure projects or the infrastructure projects that we're implementing in the department. The issue of the acquiring of the DMV headquarters, there was a study that was done by Public Works. But however, we continue to submit to Public Works because they are planning these government presence across the different provinces. So if an opportunity arises and there's funding available, possibly like we've seen in Pretoria's CBD, government departments moving into their own government presence or buildings, it's one of the things that as a department we'll probably consider based on that study. Then again, we are strengthening, we have challenges in the, I indicated earlier on, in the provincial offices. We are really strengthening those provincial offices to the extent that we know that we have capacity issues there, and for now I think we have about 7. We've secured 7 of the 9 provinces in terms of provincial offices. We're busy now with Limpopo and Gauteng. And recently we've just secured KZN office. And we are looking at then a program of decentralizing some of the services from national, so that at least at the provincial level, the officials that are sitting there are able to be fully functional and without being dependent on services in Pretoria. And then of course we still provide headstones as part of the burial support to military veterans. And the issue of the memorial sites, it's one of the targets that has troubled the department, because we are working here with the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture and the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. So it's one of the things that we are really, as I indicated, strengthening the delivery mechanisms of this of the benefits. So, Chairperson, that's a presentation from the Department of Military Veterans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I recognize the hands, so that I'll raise these questions because you'll then preempt some of the things the colleagues are going to ask. Can you just spend a bit of time on pension? The veterans were promised that they will get their pension from the beginning of the year, meaning the calendar year, January, and that never happened. And some of us, when it was mentioned, we doubted it because then the Gazette had been tabled in Parliament mid-November and no mid-December for 30 days. It means that the earliest time that could be considered was sometime in February or November, taking into account that 30-day period. But that never happened. The time was moved to the start of the financial year, March, that they will get their money because everything was that needed to be done was being done, and that the process was going to be rolled out come the beginning of the new financial year. We're now in the new financial year. We're in May now. That has not happened. If anything, we see is confusion. Confusion that what you considered to be a final product, a final draft of the regulations that was tabled in Parliament. Now it turns out that in actual fact, it's not a final draft of the regulations. We are still taking input, considering input from the public. And so it means that you are yet to table the final draft in Parliament for another 30 days. Again, pushing the delivery time by that much period away from where you ought to be, even before. You will then wait for 30 days, even before you publish it. Tell me, when is the tire going to hit the tarmac? When are we going to see the start of the registration process happening, the rollout of the process, the payment of pension? Of course, it starts with you, inviting people to enroll for the program. When will that start? And then maybe the second question, I think you need to spend a bit of time on that one, and how many people you are aiming to is the 4,000, whether it's the 4,000 for this financial year, and what is the actual allocation in this financial year? Just to stay on that one, because it's a new benefit and is a critical benefit. And on the housing benefit as well, you are indicating, posting that you want to have completed 480 housing units by the end of the financial year, that which I'm actually saying I can accept, because we should be delivering houses as a rolling program, because there was money for this program in the previous financial year. It's not like you start and stop. It's an ongoing activity. So because it's ongoing, it's got to be delivered every month. Now, for the allocation that you had for last financial year, and now that you're benchmarking 480 houses, when you could, how many houses you delivered from the allocation we gave you in the last financial year, so that we understand the appropriateness of saying you'll achieve 480 houses in this financial year. And thirdly, is the misalignment of the organizational structure with the service delivery model. It's a risk. And this risk has been around from the time I have been in this committee. It's been bandied around and is a real risk. In fact, it's actually affecting the performance of the department. And you don't seem to be seriously addressing this risk. Maybe that is for the DM to deal with. That until you have addressed this risk, this department will perform poorly on every single activity or benefit that it promises to our beneficiaries. And that goes right to the provinces. We've been to 2 provinces already. The fellows in the provinces is 2 people. And these 2 people, the one reporting to the other, and we found them not to be having any clue. When I say any clue about any activity of the department in their own backyard. But you still expect people, the military veterans, to respect those people in those offices when they have no clue. They are completely detached from what is happening in Pretoria, at the head office. Can you comment on that, whether indeed having those 2 people in the provincial offices does really, in a way, intervene in the situation of the military veterans, as it were? And if you deal with those, then you would have covered some of the issues that the colleagues are going to raise. I will then open up the platform for them to deal with the rest. You may answer now.
Okay, thank you then, yeah, Chairperson. The issue of the regulations, Chairperson, is that we tabled them in Parliament in December, as you have indicated. However, what then happened is that we received a lot of inputs to the regulations, the ones that were tabled in Parliament post that tabling, and we felt that the issues that were being raised in those inputs were valid issues that needed to be considered by the department, both administratively and legally so. So hence, then we felt that it may not necessarily be, at the advantage of the department to go ahead, without, considering those inputs. Hence, then we sat down and we looked at all those inputs. Most of them were incorporated, and hence then there was that one that was gazetted on the 25th of April 2023 for a period of 21 days. So I think that's where we are with the regulations.
So gazetting for 21 days for more input. What is the purpose of the gazetting, the publishing them for 21 days?
It's an admin, it's a legislative process that we need to follow, and also in that particular 21 days, we do expect inputs from stakeholders, which we are going to consider immediately after 21 days.
So in other words, you are saying to this committee today, you have published the regulations for public comments.
Correct.
That's what you're
yes.
saying. Okay. All right, you may continue. So it means that we are yet to factor those comments consider those comments, and then produce the final regulations, and then table them in Parliament for 30 days before you publish them for implementation.
Yes, Chairperson. Based on a large number of inputs, Chairperson, that we received from the process.
No. I heard that.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
talking about now from these 21 days. You'll consider the inputs and then produce a final regulations, which will then table in Parliament for 30 days before you gazette it for implementation. Is that what you are saying?
Chairperson, our understanding is that we are going to immediately after the 21 days, the minister will inform Parliament on the final regulations.
For 30 days. In other words, we'll table it for 30 days. I think you must mention 30 days. I want people to be realistic that we are still far from implementing the regulations. Maybe the DM will deal with that aspect because
Chairperson, if I can just assist with that, and
yes,
I think what you are referring to is Section 24(3) of the Military Veterans Act, which requires that the regulation to a benefit must be tabled in Parliament 30 days before the regulation is published. In other words, promulgated. And that is what you are referring to.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what you are referring to. So it cannot just be implemented. That is the Military Veterans Act, and that is what you are referring to, if it's not properly understood.
Correct. Maybe the DM will deal with the way forward. I thought I should just come in on that one because we don't want to live with an impression that this thing will happen in a way. I mean, the rollout on this pension will happen in a week or 2 or 3. We've got to be realistic, taking into account the stages that the stages of the process. You may go ahead with the rest of the issues before I recognize the Shelem.
Okay. And then with the issue of houses, we do agree here that there are challenges with regards to that, to the delivery of houses. Maybe I just need to explain here that we work with the Department of Human Settlements in delivering of houses for military veterans. So in my earlier statement, I indicated that there are initiatives now underway between the department and the Department of Human Settlements to try and unlock some of the challenges that we're having in ensuring that we properly identify areas where military veterans must be built houses, where military veterans must be allocated houses. And over and above that, maybe I just need to indicate that there were, for example, when we were in KZN, we had meant to understood that there were really challenges there that needed to be to be addressed, where I think KZN is one of the least one of the provinces that is poorly performing in terms of delivering of services, or I mean of houses to military veterans. So there was going to be a team that was going to go down to KZN because there was budget available there, but there were other issues, that were blocking the issue of delivery of housing. And maybe the other issue is the fact that part of what is identified as in the internal environment of the department is some of the policy gaps, that are there in the delivery of houses. Because, for example, you would find that a military veteran stays in Pretoria, Soshanguve. However, the site that has been identified for that particular military veteran.
No, I understand the dynamics. Just talk to your delivery in the last financial year and your posting of the 408 units.
Okay, in the I just need to get the numbers right here, Chairperson, but I know that what we have spent on in the previous financial year for, I just need to quickly just draw those numbers for the, for the housing benefit for as at March in the previous financial year, the department had only spent 6 million, about close to 7 million rands of the amount of 70 million that was allocated to it. So, which is about close to 10% of the amount that was allocated to it. As I indicated, Chair, that this is really due to the issues, as I indicated, the challenges, that we are trying now to unlock in terms of delivery of houses for military veterans, which we are going to be focusing on in this particular financial year.
So that's 6 million rand translated into how many units on the ground?
I just need to check, Mr. Mukwala, are you in the meeting to assist with?
Maybe you may go ahead, you will get that figure at the end, because you had planned to do over 370 housing units with the allocation we gave you. But now it turns out that you only spent 10% of less than 10% of the budget. So you want to know what has that translated itself into in terms of physical units on the ground. You may continue once your colleague is checking the statistic.
Okay. Then in terms of the misalignment of the structure, there was a process that we started last year, mid last year, quarter two last year, where we worked with the Government Technical Advisory Center from National Treasury to assist us to understand, as much as there was work that was done and we understood that the structure was misaligned. So we did a scientific study with them to further really just further understand this and how then we can move towards the structure. That exercise was completed around October last year, whereby then as part of the outcomes of that study, there was a proposed macro organizational structure that was developed, which then still needs to be discussed with the ministry. Once then we discuss that and we get a go-ahead then from the ministry and we get inputs from the ministries, then that the ministry will assist us to discuss that structure with the department of with DPSA. So it's where we are with that misalignment. There was a scientific study that we did. It pointed out exactly some of the challenges that are inherent in the department, that makes us not to deliver in terms of services. And also it talks to issues, again, as indicated, of how the department needs to be strengthened at a provincial level, such that where services are being provided, there are warm bodies that are available there. Maybe I just need to point out, Chairperson and members, that one of the things that what was the outcome of that study was the fact that necessarily the department does not necessarily need to expand too much, in the sense that because of all the the economic challenges and the pronouncements by government around public sector expansion. However, one of the issues that was raised by the study was the fact that how the department needs to leverage on
Tiny Makwanage Mensch. Tiny, please keep your mic off, please. You are disrupting the speaker. Please go ahead.
One of the issues that was raised by that study was how then the department should leverage on other two spheres of government, so that we are then able to ensure that services are properly, delivered to military veterans. Chairperson, we acknowledge the issue of the two officials that are in the provinces. For example, what we have done in the past financial, not in the past financial year, but the other financial year, we augmented those two officials that are in the provinces with an administrator, so that those officials can then start focusing on technical issues, so that they don't deal with administrative issues. So there were administrators that were appointed in all 9 provinces to assist the two officials that are in the provinces, so that when they can focus on issues of service delivery. And then the last one, I've got the figures now in terms of houses. What was delivered in the previous financial year, it's 68 houses. It's 34 houses in Gauteng, 10 houses in Limpopo, 9 houses in Western Cape, 5 houses in KwaZulu-Natal, and 10 houses in the Northern Cape.
$68 houses, eh?
68 houses, yes, Chairperson.
Okay. All right, 88,000 per unit. Okay, we can pass. Let's deal with Tex Shelembe and then Mike Bond.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, also for your questions that you have asked. What I really liked, is the issue of being realistic, because, we are here because of not being realistic on what we are doing, Chair. Chair, I think maybe they don't have a sort of the checklist, to see that from here to there, if say you have a checklist, you'll be able to see that what you must do and what is your end, process. But anyway, let's hope, this will be attended, Chairperson. I think what Honorable Marais has said about the Military Veterans Act, I think is covering me when it comes to be realistic on this issue of the regulations. Chairperson, also, I want to say thank you very much, for the department or the minister for her quick response in making sure that, the acting director is appointed to the department. This is going to help us a lot, Chairperson. Chair, I don't know, maybe I missed something. I heard that, this APP for the DMV, it has not been signed, and they said the signed one will follow, in a
has since been signed and referred, since been signed and tabled in Parliament, Mr. Shelembe.
Okay, now thank you for that. Then, Chairperson, let me come back now to the issue, because what I've seen, as we have already highlighted, there's significant delays in finalizing the military veterans regulations. I think it's going to have, a negative, result, because this is going to lead us to what we call underspending, which is not going to be good for us as a department, that we can't spend. Because if you look, right now, Chairperson, the funds has been made available by the National Treasury to be spent. But it's clear that now, March, April, May, we are going to June now, we have not started using, this allocation for the military veterans to get their pensions. It's clear that we must accept now that we are going to experience underspending in that department. And Chair, also, looking, to the issue of, I'm worried about, the cutting. I don't know, maybe they will tell me the reason. If you look, at the financial measure program, it has been reduced from 18 million to 14 million. Now, Chair, given that, I mean, the AG, I mean, has in his findings reported number of financial irregularities in the DMV, you know, are taking place. So now the question is, if we have problems in this and the sub-program of the financial management, and then at the same time, we just reduce, I mean, the allocation, maybe they can give us a good reason why, I mean, they are reducing this, I mean, budget of, I mean, of that sub-program. And then to Chairperson, I think that one, I'm happy that it has been answered, the issue of, I mean, not submitting, I mean, on the 30th of April, that I'm fine, I mean, there. Chair, let me come to the issue of, I mean, the allocation, I mean, for provincial offices. You know, Chair, the allocation for provincial offices has been reduced from 56 million to 45 million. Now, Chair, given that the national database for military veterans has not been finalized, now I think the provincial offices are essential, I mean, contact for military veterans to register to benefit from this. Now I'm asking the question now, having a big number of people still to register and finalize the database, why, I mean, has the department thought it is necessary to cut down their budget for provincial offices? Another thing, Chairperson, that I want, I mean, I think you have touched on it. I'm not clear if you look, I mean, under what you call PPI 204, it's about, I mean, the pension